Hi and welcome to Fantasy Footy Fan. It's Jeff here. So hopefully you all had a really good week. Again, it was a little bit different with GWS and Gold Coast having the bye. So there'll be some up and down scores depending on what players you had out. But obviously we want to try to do our best to ride out these byes. Obviously, there's a strategy that when our buy players come up, our premiums, we trade them to another premium. So, depending on whether you're going that way. In my case, I am trying to hold my premiums and manage it that way. And so far, so good. So I scored a 1921 this round with a round ranking of 10,701. And my overall ranking jumped from 7,243 and it's now ranked at 5,444. So I'm pretty happy with that to have a ranking that high at this time, but we still have the round 5 and round 6 buys, which the round 5 buy is going to be the interesting one. Because let's see, so I've got I've gotten rid of Grundy, but I've got Roberts, I've got Heaney, I've got Jordan, and then the round 6 buy, I've got Seth Campbell is just a bench player, so I can cover him, but I've got Max Gawn and Blake Howes, which again I can just cover him. So the round 6 buy is not too bad, but the round 5 buy is going to be interesting. But yeah, so you can see with my team where it's at. And and so I'm not actually in too bad shape at this stage. So sort of moving on to my VC and my C. So as you can see, actually I'll just quickly go back to the last round. So as you can see, I took Harry Sheezel's VC of 126, and I had the captaincy on Isaac Heaney, and he scored a 127. So that actually worked out quite well in the end. As far as my trades went, so I actually traded, just scroll down here. So I traded Brodie Grundy. I swapped him with Jackson. So I moved Jackson into my ruck. And I traded Brodie Grundy for Tom Powell, and that certainly has worked out. So Powell scored a 103. He's gone up 38k. His break even's 26. So this is, I think, it was a really smart play because he's got the role, he's got the high CBAs. He's playing good game time in the middle, and he may end up averaging anywhere between 90 to 100. Potentially, so he's not only going to score fairly well, but he's also going to make us cash as well to eventually upgrade him to a premium. But we never know. Like, we may be able to hold Powell for a bit longer. He's so he's averaging 98 at the moment. So that's pretty good. So if we have a look at our forwards. Looking at the average, so you've got, Zorko. Let me just have a. So hold on. Actually, I'll just go to stat centers and do it that way. So looking at the averages for forwards, you've got Heaney averaging a 123, Zorko 102. He's got a good role as well off half back at the moment. And Mackay just playing out of his skin at the moment. That was a surprise. And then Sam Flanders, Tom Powell, and Luke Jackson. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So Powell is 5th on that list, Jackson 6th. So, who's to say that this isn't going to be the top sort of 6 forwards of the competition, with the exception, of course, of any mids or even defenders getting forward status. But so far, so good. If you've got Tom Powell, you traded in Tom Powell. Is it too late to bring in Tom Powell? No, I don't think so. He's only 642k and he's averaging 98, and he's got the prime role. So yeah, I felt that he was a good trade last week. And then with that cash, I upgraded Ollie Wines to Matt Crouch. It really was an error on my part because I had Matt Crouch in that position at the start of or just before round one, and I replaced him with Ollie Wines. I just wasn't sure which one was going to do better. The history says it should be Matt Crouch and the role, but probably got sucked into Ollie Wines a bit there and not backing my own research. But Wines, he started sort of his first few games. Let's see, he's a 72, 88, 88, and that's like okay. But if you have a look at the other players around that price point, like your Nick Martin and your Matt Crouch and so forth, like they're doing so much better. So I just thought with Ollie Wines, I was like, I probably need to move him on, and maybe I should have moved him on even the week before to Matt Crouch. That probably would have been better. But I'm happy with those trades because Wines got an 88, I think it was, and Crouch got a 96 for the round, and then with Grundy and Powell, I mean this is just for this week, but with Grundy, he scored a 103, and Tom Powell scored the same thing. So I'm pretty happy with those trades. I think in the long run they'll work out for me. And then I'll probably end up looking at some point to bringing Jackson back into my forward line and likely maybe upgrading a Jordan maybe to someone in the ruck, and maybe Tom English at the moment. He's ranked over, just over a mil, and his break even's 142. So maybe by the time I'm looking at doing that, maybe at Jordan's bye in round 5. I might look at trying to bring in an English or, maybe even a Sherry as well. I mean, that's an option too, because he's actually doing quite well. He's averaging 102, so you got to be happy with that. An 83 in round 3, so he's going to have those scores that dip a little bit, but for the most part, he's playing quite well. But anyway, that's for future trades. I'll think about that next week. But for now, pretty happy with that. Happy I took Sheasel. Happy with the trades I made, and I'm ranked in the 5,000. So I'm happy with how I've started. As far as any injuries or anything happening in any of the matches, I don't think there was anything of influence towards any fantasy relevant players. So I believe that the injury report, of course, will come out this week. So, those who are or who were on the injury list, of course, there's some relevance there. For example, a Taylor Adams. So he's due to likely come in this week because he played actually quite well in the VFL. So he'll come in this week, and then we'll to see what kind of impact is he going to have on an Isaac Heaney, for example. Will they give more CBA time to Adams and take it off Heaney? So look, we'll just have to see how that all plays out. But aside from that, I guess looking through the numbers as well, so we got a few teams coming off their bye, and so we've got Gold Coast and GWS coming off their bye. So I guess some of the players we're going to be maybe considering bringing in off their bye. Obviously, Tuke Miller, he's actually playing quite well at the moment. So he's averaging 106. He's 900k. His break even's 100, and I think that it looks like he's probably going to average that 105 to 110. Which is great. He's already scored 110, 100, and 109. So, he's a worthy consideration, I think, in bringing in. Then there's Sam Flanders. and also he's a great option as well. So he so far has scored a 92, 119, and 87. His break even's 96. He's 844k. So yeah, another one to bring in. He's gone up 35k already, and just with me, sorry, because I forgot to check that. He's gone up 32k already as well. So definitely ones to consider if you're looking to upgrade. Obviously you're going to need the cash from somewhere. A possible option might be to, with, like in my case, I've got Gallagher and Dempsey. So an option could be to maybe trade Fife to a rook, and then maybe upgrade Jordan to like a Flanders, for example. So that might actually be an option that I'm considering. So yeah, I mean, I guess considering that James Jordan, his break even is 54 and Fife's is 56. So they do have a little bit of cash to make, but do I jump early? That's the thing. I've got to consider the James Jordan to Flanders could be an option, because Jordan's got the buy in round 5. So maybe I pull that trigger early and get Jordan out now, get Flanders in before his price goes up. And so that's, an option. I mean, looking at their averages, so Jordan's averaging 72, which is pretty decent. Fife's averaging 70. Can I get a rookie? Can I find like a rookie to maybe downgrade one and that'll score similarly to Fife and Jordan? But I'll get through my trades and everything a little bit later. But for now, getting back to it with Gold Coast, Miller and Flanders are probably players of consideration. The other option, of course, is Sexton. Now, some have obviously traded him out. I don't think we'll be trading him in. He's averaging 65. I mean, that's kind of what you're hoping for him to average. He's already made 88k. So if you started with him, it's a success. And he's got job security. His break even's 41. So hopefully he gets a decent score. His scores have been dropping, which is unfortunate. He started with an 80, then a 67, and then a 49 in round 2. So he might be one that if you own him, you might be looking at trading him in pretty soon, or trading him out, pretty soon. Then looking at the rest of Gold Coast, there's probably really no one there. I know there's Matt Rowell, but no one I'm thinking of bringing in. So with Matt Rowell, though, he's 894k. I mean, he is doing well. He's averaging 110, scores of 112, 115, and 104. So I think he's the real deal. He's gone up 64k already. He's only 894k. So he is an option if you're thinking of upgrading to someone in your midfield. He is an option. Moving on to GWS. Looking at some of the players there. Well, obviously Green is one. He will be a super premium that if you trade in, you're definitely having him for, I said super, sorry, I meant uber premium. He will be one that you'll obviously keep. He's a captain option as well. He could be an option to bring in. The other one, of course, is Lockie Whitfield. He's also in great form, averaging 113, scores of 137, 100, and 102, break even of 104. He's already gone up 71k. So if you started him, I think he's one that you probably should have kept. Maybe, I don't know if you've traded him out but to bring in. He's an option if you need to make an upgrade in your defense. The other one that I'm really interested in is Harvey Thomas. So in looking at the forwards, and I just want to see the average of some of these players that are. So you look at the Harvey Thomas, for example. He's only averaging 51. He's only, he's 267k. So if we need a rookie in our defense, could he be one to bring in? And that's because, an 18 and a 35 in round 0 and 1 where, he was subbed and not given a lot of opportunity. But then, he did actually play quite a bit of time on ground in those games, to be fair. But then, round 2, he played against the Eagles, 80% game time, and he scored 100. So, is he one that we could bring in as a forward rook? Or the other way of looking at that is that he played against the Eagles, and maybe that's why he scored as well as he did. So he's got the Suns this week. Will he put up a decent score? Is he going to go back to these 20s, 30s, and 40s? But I don't know. Here's one that I'm maybe thinking about. If there's no other forward rookies that present themselves, if I need some cash to upgrade, then he'll be one that I might be looking at. Then looking through the rest of the list for GWS, there's not really anyone else probably worth considering. So moving on to the actual games, Brisbane and Collingwood, just to start with. We've got probably the main ones to consider of bringing in, or just interested in their scores. First of all was Lachie Neale. He actually did quite well, played a pretty decent game. He's averaging 96, so he got a 75 in round 0, and then 118 in round 3. So is he one that we could bring in? He's only 860k. He's a break even of 101. So, he is an option. The other one as well is Dunkley. And so Dunkley is, 959k. So you're bringing him in at quite a high price. He's scored 104, 126, and 101 with an average of 110. So he's actually playing some really good footy at the moment. But just don't know. I don't really like bringing in players at the sort of top price. We want to try to get some value, and I think actually, and I'll get to my trades later on, but I will. I'll get to them a little bit later. Just quickly go through these teams. For Collingwood, Nick Dacos is going to be the interesting one here. So looking at his scores, so he got that 61 in round 2. He's averaging 99. He's gone down 48k. So if you don't own him, I think the strategy here, if you don't own him, is obviously the strategy that was presented at the start of the season. In round 0, was to maybe not bring him in, wait till he drops price, and potentially this week he has got the Finn McGuinness tag because they're playing Hawthorn. It's highly likely that even though McGuinness was dropped for the last game, that he'll bring him in just to tag Nick Dacos, and then he has his bye. So obviously the right strategy here would be to wait, because his break even's 134 as well. So even if he doesn't get the Finn McGuinness tag, will he get 134? He's got the potential to, for sure. But I reckon he'd be one that you would plan to get after his bye. But if you own him, then you're just definitely sticking with him, obviously. And he's only averaging 99, but he'll certainly be averaging a lot more than that by the end of the year. For the Pies, again, not many other players here of any interest. Degoe is in quite bad form. He could be one of these ones where eventually, if he does pick up form, we could jump on, because he had a pretty good year last year, but he's just out of form this year. He's only averaging 57, which is disgusting. Scores of 61, 89, 28, 52. That's horrible. His break even's 119. He's already lost 134k. So maybe we just keep an eye on him. He could be one of those ones that really bottom out, and then he starts picking up some form. But yeah, let's have a look. But the other one was Finn McRae. And that's Yeah, that with Finn McRae again. I think with him, so far he's lost 36k altogether. He's only averaging 25, and that's just because he's being a sub every game. So I guess with him, we're waiting till he actually plays some proper game time, because he only scored a 30 in this round, and that was in 38% game time because he was subbed. So this seems to be his role, is being the sub, and this is something that I did predict at the start of the year, or start of the season, because when I looked at that grand final team, I just couldn't see how McRae would fit into the grand final team, because the only changes that would be made to that team was Frampton coming out with either Reef McInnes and Ash Johnson coming in, and Ginnivan going out, and then Schultz came in. But the rest of the team doesn't change. They're all still there. So I couldn't see how McRae would actually come in. So it looks like McRae's probably, it's not position for position, but Markov isn't in this team, and from the grand final team. So McRae's probably in for that. And then you got McInnes in, of course, for Ash Johnson, or for Billy Frampton. Frampton's in, of course, in defence for Nathan Murphy. So that's how it's all being switched around at the moment. But with McRae, I think that's his role. He's going to be a sub or start and then be subbed. And then I think maybe if there's an injury, that's when he'll probably get his time. So we'll keep a lookout for what happens with the Pies. Moving on with North and Carlton. A lot of relevant players here. So obviously Harry Sheezel, just a gun. Got to be really happy if you own him. Look at that, 120, 121, 126. These are his scores. Just an absolute champ, this guy. So yeah, can you bring him in? Well, yeah, but you'll be bringing him at a premium price. I just think Sheezel will stay around this. I mean, I don't know. I don't think he'll average 122 for the season, which is what he's averaging now. That'll drop a little bit, but I can't see it dropping by much. I can't see his price dropping by much, unless there's an injury or something like that. But he's got the perfect role. He's got that halfback role with stints in the midfield, and he's just a gun player. But yeah, eventually, look, with some of these premiums, eventually you're going to have to upgrade to them at some point in the season, like a Dacos, a Sheezel. Like these guys are definitely top six. And then I mentioned Tom Powell earlier. I think if you don't have him, I think look at bringing him in. Tristan Sherry, he continues to, as I mentioned him a little bit earlier, I think he's one you could still bring in. He's only 716k, and he's averaging 102. So with a break even of 54. So he potentially is still an option. He might even be one for me that, the only thing with Sherry in bringing him in is that, when you're looking at upgrades, you're trying to look at premiums. You're looking at keepers, I guess. With Tristan Sherry, I mean, is he a keeper for the year? Maybe. But I guess ultimately by the end of the year, we're wanting probably Gawn and English. Maybe Marshall, but Gawn and English, I think, are going to be the two best rucks. So do you upgrade to, say, one or both of those players now, if you don't have them? Or do you wait and fix up other areas of your team? So it depends on your circumstances and your situation. But I think in my case, I think just with my team and how it's traveling, which I'm pretty happy with, and my score, obviously, I'm sort of in the top 6k. Then I'm pretty happy with that. With my overall rank, that is, I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, I might start looking at strengthening my team a little bit, and maybe looking at that as an option. There is another option I'm going to consider. I'll discuss that in a moment. So Sherry, look, yeah, I guess you could bring him in still. I mean, he's averaging 100. So if we actually have a look at the rucks, I'll just bring up the rucks here. So, like, if you look at the averages for the rucks, you've got Max Gawn, of course, at the top, 119, English 108, Marshall 107, and then Sherry at 103. Like, that's how well he is doing. He's a top 5 ruck. So, he's one that could be a keeper. If he ends up like maintaining his average of around 100 to 105, he could be a keeper. Bring him in now, hold him, and then work at fixing other players in your team, because he's only 716k. Like, that's pretty cheap for someone who's averaging 103. So I think, yeah, he's definitely a consideration to bring in my opinion. Looking through North, you got Colby McKercher, who continues to do great things. So, like, he's averaging 82. I think it's obviously it's past now. I don't think you can really bring him in. I don't know how much cash he'll continue to make. His break even 7. He's made 169k, so he continues to make great cash for us. Zach Fisher, didn't really. Like, I think this is just going to be the case with Zach Fisher by the looks of it. I think he's just going to have up and down scores. He's only made 16k, and you would have hoped that if you owned him, he would have made a lot more than that by now. But scores of 68, 85, and 76, it's not ideal. And his break even is 68. So maybe it could be an opportunity to maybe trade him, depending on what else is going on in your team. But maybe if you don't have a PAL, you go to a PAL from Fisher. He is worth like sort of 600 to 700k, so 639k. So maybe you just go straight to an upgrade or a massive downgrade, and then fix up other areas in your team. It just it really depends, because he's averaging 76. So maybe you go to a rookie who averages something close to that. I don't know. There's a few options here for what you could do with Fisher. So LDU, this is the one I want to really talk about, because obviously I'm an owner, and we've got there's only 5% LDU owned, and I guess maybe the writing was on the wall. Maybe he's more of a Supercoach player than a fantasy player this year. And he's dropped 25k overall. I picked as a premium. Now, this is not like who's to say, he could very well average, some pretty high numbers as the season goes on. But for now, there are other players around his price or just a bit higher that are more reliable and consistent. And in fairness to LDU, in watching this game, you could see that there was a bit of a team tag on LDU. There was at least a few players. The Blues were really putting a lot of pressure on him, and hence he had a pretty bad score. And he came back actually fairly well, considering where he was at halftime. But he ended up with 27 possessions, and he scored a 67. Of those 27, 15 were handballs. So that's probably what has really hurt him. But yeah, so I'm just thinking about it. I really do feel maybe this year he is more Supercoach than fantasy, and I'm thinking of possibly him being the trade. Maybe I think I might hold Fife and Jordan maybe for another week and trade Jordan at his bye, maybe to a Flanders. And maybe do the trade now of LDU. So there's a few players obviously around this price point, the 900k price point, in the midfield. So I'm just bringing up the stats here. So looking at some of these prices of some of these players, you got it like a Jack Steele for 935, and he's averaging 117 at the moment. And then you've got Matt Rowell, who's averaging 110, and he's 894. You got, I don't know if you go for a Warple. Elijah Hollins was a surprise. We'll get to him in a moment. And then you've got Tuke Miller. So he's averaging 106, and he's only 900k. So there's a few there that I think are worth it. Excuse me. Even with Dane Zorko, just having a quick look at Zorko, so he's scored 105, 99, and 102, and that's because he's got that really good role. I probably should have spoken about him in the with the Brisbane Collingwood game. But yeah, because he scored a 102 last week, and he's playing that half-back role. It's a good role. The only concern with Dane Zorko, of course, is the age, the injury history. That's the concern. But he's a mid-forward, 102k. Is he a keeper for the season? Maybe not. Well, that's the difference, I think. With a Steele or a Miller, like they're keepers for the season, and they hopefully or should keep fit for the whole year. And even Matt Rowell, I think Matt Rowell has proven himself now as being a premium midfielder. I'm just watching him in the last few weeks. So yeah, this is a decision to be made here with LDU. Lazaro, if you've got him still, I don't think you're bringing him in, obviously, but if you've got him, he scored a 55 last round. He actually looked really good. Like, he looks quite lively when he was there in the midfield. I think his job security is pretty good now. I was concerned about it, but I think based on that last game anyway, I think hopefully he'll be in the team and won't be subbed. He scored a 55. He's made 63k. We're wanting to have some of these rooks make at least 250k. So can he do that? Yeah, that's the only thing. Not sure. His break even's 19, so all he needs is a decent score, and he'll make a bit of cash. For the rest of North, there's not really anyone else to go on except for maybe Dersma. So yeah, again, you wouldn't be bringing him in, but if you have him, you hold him. 88k he's made so far. He's averaging 56, break even of 25. So if you have him, you're probably holding. And then Toby Pink. So there was some that maybe brought in Toby Pink, but he's going to be a very, very slow burn. And that's why I didn't want to really pick him. He's a key position defender. He's averaging 33. If you look at his scores, 32, 49, 20. I was never really interested. At the very start, I had Pink because, he's a mature aged rookie. So, you're like, well, yeah, teams only get those kinds of players in and they'll play them. But then when I found out he's, playing at, full back or centre half back, I thought, he's not really going to get a lot of points. And so I was glad. I actually ended up spending up a little bit more with my rooks. I didn't really want Pink for that reason. So I think with him, if you own him, you probably have other issues to fix. So for now, you can just put him on, obviously keep him on your bench. But other than that, you'd be looking at getting rid of him the moment a rook is named to play that has some decent reputation. Like if there's a Schoenmaker for St Kilda, if he gets named, he's a player I think to jump on because he's actually playing quite well in the VFL. So anyway, but that's Pink. So that's North for Carlton. Elijah Hollands was the interesting one there. I don't know if you're bringing him in. He scored a 107 and went up 22k. His break even's 55. It's just a bit unpredictable with him. As far as his game time, I think he played at half forward and played 84% game time. I think he's a permanent fixture in that team. So I think his job security is good. You just have to see whether, he will continue to score. I don't think he will. And they played North Melbourne too. So, yeah, I don't think he is an option. As far as other players, Zach Williams, of course, is the other one. I made the mistake of having Zach Williams on my bench. I decided to try to loophole, and I had Zach Williams, and he scored a 60, and I thought, nah, Howes will score more than that. Howes was averaging 70, I think, at the time. So in that example, I thought, no, I'll keep Blake Howes, but I didn't expect a 23 from Howes, so that really threw me out a little bit. But yeah, look, with Williams, he's made 64k so far. His break even's 44. He's averaging 67. He's got the role. I don't think you'd be bringing him in, but if you have him, you're holding him till he maxes out, and then you're either downgrading, or upgrading, of course, from there. Jack Carroll, no, not really interested in him. And that's probably it. Fantasia is not doing really well. So moving on to Fremantle and Adelaide. With Fremantle, so the big thing here was Hayden Young. So he scored a 129, but a lot of players did trade him out of their fantasy team. And he ended up scoring a 129. He looked great in this game. Just could see him streaming through the midfield. Looked great. And had the role. And actually, just having a look at the... where are we? Just having a look at the CBAs. Sorry, just give me a sec. So Fremantle... sorry, just getting up the CBAs here. So for Fremantle, the CBAs, so he had 70% CBAs, so he was actually playing quite a bit of time in that midfield rather than playing at half-back. He ended up with 32 possessions in that game. So, yeah, it looks like, well, hopefully he will be back into good form, but he wasn't really in bad form to begin with anyway. I mean, he had scored a 95 and a 75, with, yeah, ideally is not great, but it's these, 100, 110 scores that we're hoping from Young. He's only 818k. He's averaging 99, and I actually think that average will go up. I think he'll be a 105 type player to 110. So he is an option if you're thinking of trading him in. Caleb Sarong, again, had another good game. He's now averaging 134, 161, 125, 118. I think if you've got him, you're so happy you started with him. Do you bring him in? Yeah, look, if you're in a position to upgrade to a premium in the midfield, then he's certainly one to consider. There's many others to think about as well, but he's certainly one. Jordan Clark. So he continues to perform, and he's quite cheap still if you're thinking of bringing in a cheaper defender. Scores of 97, 99, 97. It looks like he's going to average, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but it looks like he's going to average that 95 to 100 this season. His break even 69. And he's only 755k. So I think that his price will continue to go up, and if you're wanting a cheaper type player in your defense, like for example, those who have, like I know for me, I've got Elliot Yeo at the moment. He's kind of around the same price point. He's a bit cheaper, but he's making some pretty good cash for me so far. Well, I guess I'll talk about him more in the West Coast game, but yeah, around that price point, you've got Jordan Clark as well to consider bringing in. But you'd be pretty happy with that pick if you started with him. So Luke Jackson, he only scored an 88. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that of his 23 possessions, 18 of them were handballs. And that's what really hurt his score. If only he had kicked a little bit more. And yeah, a goal would have been nice as well, but yeah, that didn't happen. But still, I mean, if you've got him, you're still pretty happy with his performance so far this season. He's made 38k and he's averaging 97 at the moment. So I think he will continue to put up some decent scores and make us some cash. But again, the rule with Jackson is the moment that Sean Darcy is brought into this team, then Jackson has to go straight away because he just does not score well when Sean Darcy's in the team. Andrew Brayshaw got an 84. I'm not talking a lot about him. Actually, it depends on his ownership. So how many own him? So he's owned by 5%, so a smaller amount. Yeah, he's been scoring okay. Maybe we wait till he bottoms out. His break-even's 140 before we think about bringing him in. But if you have him, you're probably holding, I guess. Then Jeremy Sharp's been doing well, continues to make us cash. I think obviously if you don't have him, you've probably missed him now. So he's made 138k so far. So he's on track to make that 2 to 250k that we want to make off our rooks. So he's got a break even of 11. He's averaging 71. He'll continue to make great cash for us. And he's got the job security on the wing, so all that works. Nat Fife, So Fife scored a 61, and he just looking at his numbers. So look, again, with him, his score was affected by the fact that in his 24 possessions, he had 15 handballs. So that really affected his output of his potential score, where he could have cracked that 70 mark. That's what we want from Fife, is at least if he's averaging 70, he's going to make us money and score decently. So his break-even's 56. I reckon you could probably hold him for a couple of more games, maybe another 1 or 2 games, and I think that'll be it for him. I think we either upgrade him or downgrade him, because I think that's pretty much it. I think his max average is going to be around that 70 mark. Looking at his numbers, probably, I'd say probably 70-ish. So he's definitely not a keeper. He's one just to make us some cash and to score, well, and then we move him on. And then looking at the rest of Freo, there's not really anyone else. So looking at the Crows, so Rory Laird, only a 102 this round. But he's definitely a premium to have if you have him, of course. He's your keeper for the year, captaincy option. He scored 119, 105 and 102 so far. So if you don't have him, well, you're hoping, I guess, that he has a bad game or something like that, and then he bottoms out in price. Jordan Dawson continues to perform quite well. He's got the numbers there: 89, 131, 100. He's averaging 106, which maybe you'd probably want a little bit more than that from a premium like Dawson. His break-even's 126. He's lost 35k so far. So if you don't own him, he's one that you're looking at. Maybe he'll drop in price and you might be able to bring him in. That's unlikely. He won't drop by much. And if you own him, then he's a keeper, of course. Matt Crouch. So Crouch, I think, is a fantastic pick. He even still technically is a good pick if you want to bring him in, because if you watch the games, like he's everywhere. He's just getting so much of the ball. He's got that job security. It's not like in the last couple of years where he's sort of in and out of the team. Was it the coach or was it someone else that came out and said that he was in the best best form of his career? So everything is pointing up for Crouch. He scored a 96, and once again, that score is because of his 28 possessions. 21 of them were handballs. That's the only issue with Matt Crouch, is that he's handball happy and doesn't kick as much. And hopefully he can change that in time, but for now you're pretty happy. I mean, he's averaging 106 and he's only 817k. That's pretty cheap. So he's still an option to bring in my opinion. He's made 83k so far. Obviously, I brought him in last week, and I'm happy with that because he made, so he was in I think it was 791 k when I got him in, and he made 26k and scored a 96. So I'm really happy with that trade, but he's still a consideration for what he can do. Moving on with Adelaide, I don't think really there's anyone else that I'm looking at there. So Essendon and St Kilda, looking at that game. So Nick Martin, man, he really came through, didn't he? A 145. I'd heard during the week some were considering making him captain, and if you did, you're a genius. Like, fantastic pick if you put the C on him. He'd scored a 93 and a 103, but I don't think anyone thought he'd go a 145, which is what he did in this game. He's got the role. He had 44 possessions and 31 were kicks. This is what we want. It's exactly what we want. It's exactly for you out there that started him. It's exactly what we expected would be with Nick Martin. He's got the halfback role. He's going to get the numbers. And just ecstatic to have him, and he could very well end up, because he's averaging 113, so he could very well end up being a top 6 defender, because he'll get defender status, and as soon as that DPP comes out, I'll be looking at probably upgrading maybe a D'Ambrosio and moving Martin into my defense and upgrading D'Ambrosio to a premium mid. So that works out really well. So I'm really happy so far with Nick Martin. I'm only bringing this up because I'm just curious, but how's McGrath going? So he's okay. Yeah. Is he owned 1%? Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to have a quick look at McGrath and how he was going, but I'm not overly interested. So Zach Merritt continues to just be an absolute jet. So you got to be pretty ecstatic with him if you own him, and for all the rest of us who don't own him, he's going to be a top 8 mid, as he is pretty much nearly every year. At some point, we'll probably have to bring him in. So as a non-owner, I am kind of hoping that he does get some low score, maybe he gets tagged in a game or something like that, but that's just wishful thinking, because the guy's just a gun. He's averaging 119, 125, 122, 110. Man, he's just such an awesome fantasy player. Darcy Parish came back and scored a 104. So that was his first game back. His break even's 120. Maybe just keep an eye on him if he scores some bad scores, maybe to bring in. Then through the rest of the team, I don't think, there's no one really else to St Kilda. Riley Bonner performed. I did mention last week I was concerned about the Bonner's role with Sinclair in the team, but Bonner really played a great game and ended up scoring a 127. So if you've owned him, you're really laughing all the way to the bank. Now he's averaging 96 and he's only 599k. Is it too late to bring him in? No. Maybe you've missed obviously some of these scores that he's gotten. How much money can he continue to make? Well, he's made 136k so far, and if he continues to average 100-ish, then he could actually still make a lot more money. But I don't think I'll be bringing him in. I think at 600k, and there's a few other things that I really want to fix in my team. But yeah, if you own him, you'd be ecstatic. Jack Steele. So Jack Steele he scored a 124, and could have been a lot more actually, because out of his 29 possessions, he had 18 handballs. But as I've said in previous weeks, this is how you know that Jack Steele is going to have a great year this year, because when he's got injuries. When he doesn't have injuries and he's not carrying any injuries, he plays well. And the marker here is his tackles and contested possessions. If they are low, then you know that he's carrying an injury and it's probably not good to get on. But he had 7 tackles and 10 contested possessions, and his tackles and contested possessions in his previous games are also fairly high as well. So I think he's going to have a great year. He's averaging 117, 935k. I am seriously considering bringing him in this week. Probably tossing up between him and Tuke Miller, I think. But yeah, I'll have to think about that a little bit during the week. Rowan Marshall, he scored a 117. Again, he's just a premium ruck. 118, 86, 117 is what he scored so far. Break even of 132. So I think if you don't own him, he's lost 43k already, and he's break even 132. So if you don't own him, you're looking to see how he goes over the next few weeks. If he drops in price, and maybe there's that option of, as I mentioned before, maybe trading a Jordan up. And bringing Jackson back into the forward line and trading up to like a Marshall or an English, that is a possibility. Looking at Jack Sinclair, so he's scoring okay-ish in this game anyway. He scored a 99, but it was a 79 and a 99 so far. So he's probably just building up some form. He's dropped 41k already, which is great for non-owners. Break even of 119, so he should drop even further. And then we could maybe look at bringing him in, because he will likely end up being a top 6 defender. Wanganeen Malira, so only a 71, and I'm pretty sure that there were many that brought him in this week. He's nearly 15% owned now. An 84, and then of course he got that 122, and that's when everyone jumped on, but then only a 71. So I think maybe I was thinking that with Bonner and Sinclair and Wangani Malira, who's going to score well, who's going to steal points off who, and I think it just might be a little bit up and down between the three of them. I know with just having a look at the CBAs for St Kilda, because I'm just curious. So Sinclair only had 8% CBAs, which means that he's not really playing in the midfield as much, and it's more so probably there's a little bit of half-back wing between the three of them. So I think we're going to have these up and down scores between the three of them this season. His break-even's 104, Wangani Malira, averaging 92, and I actually think he may end up averaging around that mark. He'll have his tons, but then he'll have his 70s and 80s as well. Looking on, so Winhager, everyone, well, I know I was just a little bit curious to see how he would go. He scored that 83 last week. He's getting all this midfield time. His CBAs was 74%. So he's playing in the midfield. That's his role, especially with Brad Crouch out as well. But unfortunately, it's not reflected in his scores. Only a 60 this week, only 18 possessions as well. And he had 81% game time, so he's playing a fair bit of time on the ground, but just really thought he was going to do better at his price, because I actually had him in my team in defence, but then he broke his hand, and of course I took him out. But I'm kind of glad now, based on that I didn't really start with him. So we'll keep an eye on him anyway, just to see if this midfield time translates into fantasy scores. And that's probably it. They had Darcy Wilson. That was a real bummer. So so looking at my last round, this is what happened. So I had Darcy Wilson on the ground, which is a bit unfortunate. And I had Gallagher as an emergency, and he got a 90. Now I had Dempsey on the ground, and I had Sexton as my utility. But with a 90, you're thinking, you got to take that. You absolutely take that from a rookie. So I brought Sexton on. But little did I know that Dempsey decided to have a pretty decent game, and he got a 102. So I missed out on 12 points there. It would have been great if I'd had Gallagher and Dempsey on the ground. But, of course, everything's easier in hindsight. But, yeah, Darcy Wilson didn't play as well as I would have hoped. And now, where are we at with him? So he's made 89k so far, break even of 22, and now averaging a 51 because of that 35 that he got. So I think he's better than that. I expect him to average probably, I don't know, in the 60s maybe, 50s, 60s, hopefully. But yeah, we'll see. And then of course they had Angus Hasty, I think it is, who was a rook, and yeah, he was a sub. But and he didn't really do that well. So moving on to Port and Melbourne. Rosie a 99, Ollie Wines an 88. So not that great from Wines. I think probably good to trade him out to a better performing player. Butters was the disappointing one. He scored a 79, and that really sort of hurt. I think if you're a non-owner, you're just keeping an eye on Butters. He's overall he's made 7k now because of that score. But his first couple of scores, 107, 117, you're pretty happy with that. Maybe this is just a one-off, that kind of a score, and then he'll come back better next week. But if you don't own him, then yeah, you're just keeping an eye, because his break-even's 117, so you're keeping an eye on him. For the rest of Port, I don't really see anyone I'm interested in there. For the Ds, well, obviously Max Gawn, just fantastic. Obviously, can't really bring him in now. Eventually, you're going to have to bring him in if you don't own him, because I think he'll be a top 2 or at least top 3 ruck. He's averaging 119, break even of 70. I mean, but yeah, you're pretty happy with how he did. So Clayton Oliver, I've got my eye on him as well, because he continues to drop in price. So this scores of 89, 114, 86, 94. And normally you'd say that's okay, but for Clayton Oliver, that is definite unders. He's dropped 91k so far. So for non-owners, you got to be pretty happy with that. His break-even's 133. So he's one I'm keeping a really close eye on. I'm waiting till he bottoms out, and as soon as he does, I am jumping on, because I think just as the season goes, I think he'll get better and better. 25 possessions, kicked a goal in 75% game time. So I reckon maybe his minutes are being managed a little. But 12 contested possessions, so they're not holding him back. He's in the midfield, he's playing his normal role, but I think his form from last year, I think that'll eventually come with him. Petrarca scored a 83, Viney a 91. I don't know how many jumped on Viney after his previous score, so only 3%. So yeah, he had that 123 to start the year. I think that's just what Viney does. He starts the year, first game, second game, and then he just drops off. Petrarca. So his scores, he's only averaging 100 at the moment, so maybe he's another one. Break even of 124. Let's just keep an eye out on him. Look, and this is the thing with Melbourne players, is that you're not looking at bringing them in this week or even the following week, because they've got their bye in round 6. So these are players you're looking at after that bye. And then Christian Salem, so he's really dropped off. Marty Hoare, if you have him, don't really know what's going to happen now. I think Stephen May comes in this week. I'm just really unsure about his job security. Windsor only scored a 38. It's pretty disappointing. And Billings is another one. A few disappointing performances for Melbourne in this game. So yeah, look at that, a 30. So look, overall he's made 26k, but he's just not doing what we had hoped. He's up and down scores. He's averaging 62, break even of 72. There's every chance that he doesn't get that and he loses more cash. But definitely not one you'd be bringing in. And if you have him, I definitely can understand trading him out. At least you've made a few dollars on him and you haven't lost money. And Blake Howes, that was, again, disappointing, but, excuse me, you don't want to be harsh on rookies. You can't expect them to be scoring, like 74, 66, 78 is what he scored in his first 3 games. So at 23 this round, all you're hoping is that he still has that job security. But you got to be pretty happy. He's made 196k so far. Break even of 31. He's averaging 60. He's doing his job. He'll end up making that 2 to 250k, and then we can either upgrade or downgrade him. So he's doing his job. So you're still happy. 23, not great, but still you're pretty happy with him as a cash cow. So going to the doggies in the West Coast game. So looking at some of these, so Bont is the one I'm keeping my eye on of all the midfielders, because he's now down to 980k, and he's dropped 76k so far with scores of 90, 104, and 103. His break-even's 136, and I don't see him getting that this week. Just having a look at the fixtures. Sorry, I'm just having a look to see who the doggies are playing. So they've got Geelong. But remember, all these games are in Adelaide, so not necessarily an advantage or a home ground advantage. But look, he should still score well, and he should turn up because he's Bont. But he's not. I don't think he's getting his break even. I wouldn't put money on it, that's for sure, because Bont could get his break even. But I guess for a non-owner, I'm actually hoping he doesn't. And he continues to lose cash, and then when he bottoms out, another player I'll be looking at bringing in. So Lockie Bramble continues to be a surprise. He got 100, and then English. So he's the other one I'm looking at. So he's lost 43k overall. Scores of 113, 112, and now a 98. So his break-even's 142. Again, another player that could easily get that this round. Who's he rucking against? Will it be Conway? Will they bring Stanley back in? Either way, it doesn't matter. You're expecting a pretty big score from English this week. Having said that, you'd be pretty disappointed that he got a 98 against West Coast this round. So that is pretty disappointing, but but you still would expect him to do well. But for me as a non-owner, keeping a really close eye on him, for him to drop under that mil, anywhere between 900 to a mil. If you're getting Tim English, you're pretty happy with that, I think. He's averaging 107, so you're happy with that. If you own him, obviously you're not doing anything. You're keeping him. He's a keeper for the year. Harvey Gallagher is the one that if you've owned him, you're really ecstatic about that. 16% owned, so for a rook, not heavily owned, but to get that 90 now in his price cycle, that's just great. So he's now earned he's increased 137k, and he's got a negative 19 break even. And he's averaging 67k, so he's doing his job as a rook and making that cash, and he's got the job security as well, particularly after this game where he's kicked 2 goals. Riley Sanders, just as long as Bevo keeps him on the ground and doesn't sub him, he'll do well. So you look at his scores: 68, 78, and now 85 this round. So he's made 144k, negative 3 break even. Again, if you don't own him, then you've probably missed out, but he continues to make great cash for us and score decently as well. Jack McRae only scored a 75. I don't know what's happening with McRae and how he's being used. If you have a look at the sorry, I'm just bringing up the CBAs for this game. He had 48% CBAs, so it's not too bad. If you have a look at the CBAs, it's always Treloar and Bont, but even Bont only got 56% CBAs as well. So so I'm just looking through here, and Sanders had 52%, Libba had 47%, McRae had 47%. I think I didn't get to watch this game that closely. I think Libba might have had an injury. So so I think with McRae, obviously you're definitely not looking at bringing him in, but you're definitely looking at what happens with him and his scores, because his break even's 112. He got a 75 in this game, and he lost 19k, and hopefully he continues to lose more cash before maybe Bevo starts playing him in the midfield. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. And then, as mentioned, Libba 73. He was subbed off, I think, I don't know if he was subbed off for an injury or anything. I'm not too sure. And then that's probably it for West Coast. So Elliot Yeo, if you own him, you're ecstatic with that, a 108. And that's awesome. So really happy with his score. He's made 55k now, break even at 50, as I mentioned before, averaging 92. He's doing everything that you want if you own him. Could you bring him in? Maybe, but I just don't think it's worth it at 688k. But he's a cheaper defender option, I guess. For the rest of the West Coast team, I guess you're looking at Harley Reid, who scored a 43. So he's not really panning out the way we had hoped. He's only averaging 51. He's made 62k. His break-even's 27. It looks like, he's going to be one of those players that is not going to get to that 250k that we want from him to make. And I think, we just as soon as he maxes out, I think, I would be trading him. I mean, scores of 55, 56, and 43. That's just not what you want. You've got much cheaper rookies doing better than that. And then I think that's probably it. And then just Richmond and Sydney. Sorry, we've been going for just over an hour. I'll try and wrap this up as quick as I can. So Taranto's doing quite well. Let's have a look here. So when I say quite well in this game, he got a 132, but a 56, a 91, and 96. That has dropped him by 122k. He's got his buy in round 6, so his break even's 98. So maybe we just wait on him, because remember how we started the year last year. So maybe we wait and could pick him up on the cheap after his bye. For the rest of Richmond, I don't really see anything there. Seth Campbell continues to make cash. He's made 152k overall so far, break even of 13. So he's on his way to hopefully making that 200 to 250k. And yeah, that's probably it. And then for the Swans, Heaney. So this is a decision that we have to make. Heaney continues to be putting up big numbers. Like, look at that. 121, 125, 117, 127. He's just a beast in the midfield. Taylor Adams comes in this week. Let's have a look at how that impacts Isaac Heaney and whether we may end up needing to trade him out when his bye comes up in round 5. So Grundy scored a 103. I think if you've got him, is he a keeper for the year? He could be. Scores of... Look, the 53 wasn't great in round 1, but 118, 90, and 103 is not bad. Like, he's made 62k, his break-even 74, and he's averaging 91. So that's all positive signs, I know I traded him out last week because I felt that, the money I would have made with Powell would help elsewhere. And I felt Powell and Grundy could very well average around the same for the rest of the year, potentially. Maybe Grundy might average a little bit more, but... I think Powell will be close to that. And Matt Roberts, man, you just got to love owning him. He's already made 260k, so he's made more than really what we're expecting, and his break-even's 3. He's averaging 84. What a rook to start with. Excuse me. Obviously, it's a bit late to get on him, but man, he's one of those rooks that is just a real bonus to your fantasy team. We'll be upgrading or downgrading with him soon. Maybe at his bye. Maybe you go early. I don't know. There's a few options there. We'll, I guess, cross that when that bye comes. Errol Goulden only got an 83. So he's now lost 88k. And scores of 69, 111, 117, 83. If you don't own him, so here's another one that you're keeping your eye on because his break-even's 126 and he's only averaging 95. So maybe you wait till he bottoms out. But if you own him, I think you're holding, obviously. And then James Jordan, look, he continues to make cash. He got a 60 and he's made, 107k so far. You were hoping that he might make a little bit more. But break even of 54, I think it's probably about time or near time to maybe be trading him or downgrading or upgrading him. And probably likely at his buy in round 6. And then moving on to the last game, Hawthorn Geelong. So many brought in D'Ambrosio. And he didn't have the best game that we would have liked. He ended up... he ended up scoring a 60, which is, it's still good. I mean, he's made, 114k overall, 94, 96, and then a 60. And he was playing a lot on the wing as opposed to halfback, but his break-even's 44. So he'll still continue to make cash and should still continue to score fairly well. And then other players of interest here is, of course, James Sicily. So he is bleeding cash. So he's lost 129k already. His break-even's 126. He's only averaging 72. So, scores of 30, 116, and then 70. I think with Sicily, you're waiting till he really bottoms out. Because just with the injuries they have in defence, with the role he's playing, he's not playing the same role that he was playing last year. There's a bit more manning up, and he's just not playing as loose. So he'll have these up and down scores. So for a non-owner, I'm definitely waiting for him to bottom out and maybe bring in, because I think by the end of the year you'd expect he would be around the top 6 to top 10 defenders for the year. And so that's really all I'm interested in there. For Geelong, Tom Stewart scored a 110. He'll be a top 6 defender for sure. So he's 875k, so he's not a great deal. He's only gone up 6k with his scores. His break-even's 93. So yeah, if you're wanting to upgrade to a premium in your defense, he's definitely an option. And if you brought in Dempsey, if you got Dempsey, you're really happy with that 102. So that scores now of 92 and 102 in his 3 games. 53 was the other one. But he's actually gone up 174k, and he's got a negative 13 break even, and he's averaging 82. Like, that's just a great rookie to have. He'll make cash, hopefully like a Roberts. He's got the job security. He's playing along the wing. I think it's probably late to bring him in, but if you've got him, he's just a great cash cow. Max Holmes got a 94. It's not too bad for his owners. Jai Clark got a 76. You'd be really happy with that. Now, I, of course, traded him out. I think I traded him out the previous week. Actually, no, I traded him out for Dempsey. Yeah, I think that's what I did. So let's see. 32, 45, and now 76 for Clark. So he's made 65k, and he's got a negative 3 break even. So you're holding, of course, if you've got him. And he's got the good role. He's playing in the midfield. If you have a look at his CBAs, he got, where are we? So 42% CBAs. I think this year Geelong are sharing the CBAs a little bit. There's no real one player that's dominating. Maybe a Dangerfield when he plays, but he's getting some decent time in the midfield. Toby Conway, so he scored a 68. The only problem with him is just the job security, because Stanley might come back. It'd be great to have a ruck on the bench that's making money, but he's 338k. If only we knew he was in as the number 1 ruck for the rest of the season. I mean, that would be great. You probably would be looking at bringing him in, but just worried about that job security. That's probably about it for all the games. So I'll just finish up really quickly here. So just looking at looking at my trades for this week. Sorry, excuse me. I'm a frog in my throat. Sorry. Just excuse me. Sorry. So looking at LDU, we've got probably trading him to a steal. So trading him to a steal, and then probably trading a Jordan or an at 5 down, I think, to a rook is likely what I'm going to do, but just not 100% sure on that. I think Steele or Miller. I can't really see anything else in my team that I'm really wanting to change at this stage. Maybe a Zach Reed if a Schoenmaker gets named. I probably would trade Zach Reed to Schoenmaker, and then maybe trade Davies Uniacke to like a Steele or a Miller. Or maybe I just give LDU another chance. But as far as the rest of the team goes, I'm pretty happy with everything. I think with Jordan, Fife, Sexton, they can all play one more game. If I want to really squeeze a little bit more cash out of them, I could probably do that. But for now, I'm pretty happy with everything. So it likely will be either a Reed to a Schoenmaker if he's named, or maybe a downgrade of like a 5 for a Jordan, or even a Sexton, and then maybe an upgrade from LDU. I'm just a little bit disappointed with how he's scoring at the moment. A 98, 96, 77, that's not what I expected. I wanted scores like 105, 110, and I'm just not getting it with him. Likely that will be my change. So as far as fixing my team up a little bit, I've got Green on the field. I think I might bring Sanders in for Sharp, and probably bring in Williams for Blake Howes. And then, Darcy Wilson has to go, so probably Dempsey in for Wilson, keep him on the bench. When I say go, obviously, I just move him onto my bench. I'm not going to trade him out, but Dempsey definitely comes on the ground, and Gallagher as my emergency. So that's sort of my team. As far as my vice captain and captain goes, I think looking at the games coming up, let's have a look here. So I think... Look, Gawn is a great option against O'Brien. Gawn's in really good form. I think for North, North and Brisbane, you can always go, I think, Sheasel again, if you have a look at his numbers, 120, 121, 126 in all of his games. I don't think Brisbane will really do much with Sheasel's role. I don't think they'll tag him or anything like that. So he's just another great captaincy option. I think Port are playing at home against Essendon, and being it's the gather round and all these kinds of things, I think, if you've got a Butters or if you've got even a Rosé, I think they're captaincy options. Of course, if you have a Merritt, then he's definitely an option. For the Eagles and the Swans, again, it's not like the game is being played at Perth. It's in Adelaide, so it's an even ground from Sydney and West Coast. But you might have a few extra West Coast supporters that have flown over, but I think, Heaney obviously is a definite option against the Eagles. We saw how he went last week against Richmond, so I think he should do well. But if Adams is in the team, this is the thing I'm worried about if Adams is there. For Freo and Carlton, I think if you've got Sarong, then he's obviously an option there against Carlton. But looking at what Carlton did to LDU with a bit of that team tag, I reckon they'll do the same thing to Sarong. So I don't think he's as much of an option. And then, of course, you've got the Doggies versus the Cats. And I think Bont will be an option, but English, I think, definitely an option there. Then for the Suns and the Giants, well, you've got Tuke Miller on one side. You've got Tom Green on the other side. Again, it's in Adelaide. It's neutral ground. So I think Tom Green, if you've got him, will be a great option there. For Richmond and St Kilda, Taranto was in good form last week. If you've got him or you're going to bring him in, but Jack Steele will probably be the one there to pick. And then for Collingwood and Hawthorn, so this is the thing, you would probably pick Dacos normally, but you're all looking to see if Finn McGuinness is named. If he's named, you're not going anywhere near Dacos. Non-owners would be hoping that McGuinness is named, but really there's no one else to be looking at in this game. So, yeah, that's the captaincy, vice captaincy, and all my trades. So that's pretty much the review for this week and also the potential trades for this upcoming round. So hopefully you all have a good round this round coming up. Just remember to stick to your plans and your strategies that you've got in place. We're looking for value still, but most importantly, we're looking for rookies as well that are making cash, because that's how we end up getting fantasy success in this game, is just making money off our rooks. So thanks again, everyone, for watching and for listening. Hopefully, again, you have a really good week in fantasy this upcoming week, and I'll catch you again soon.